OnePlus is undergoing a major overhaul. The flagship killing OnePlus, which we are all so fond of, has practically vanished to give way to a more corporate like company. In line with this new strategy, OnePlus has a bigger and more diverse product lineup than ever before. At a time like this, should you buy the OnePlus 8T or look elsewhere? I'm Rohan from TechieTechTech, and let's answer that question. One look at the OnePlus 8T and you can easily tell who OnePlus has been looking at for inspiration. Design and aesthetic is purely personal preference, but I just cannot get myself to love the Samsung style design theme of the OnePlus 8T with its rectangular camera module to the top left and the glossy glass back. There's nothing wrong with it, to be honest. It's just that we have always seen OnePlus phones standing out from the crowd with unique design decisions like the sandstone back on the OnePlus One or the large circular camera on the OnePlus 7T. With the 8T, OnePlus is being more mainstream than ever before, but again, this is purely personal preference. Keeping aside the design language, there's nothing wrong with the build quality of the phone. In fact, it feels quite premium in hand. You have a glossy glass back which is surprisingly good at hiding fingerprints, and it is complemented by a matte aluminium frame. The buttons are all very clicky and the mute slider is always a pleasure to have. The camera bump on the top left is very small for 2020 standards, which is a welcome addition. This is the theme with the OnePlus 8T. There's nothing flashy or special about the build quality, but all the essentials are covered so perfectly that it makes for a great functional experience. And we are not even done with the functional point of view here. Flip over to the front and you see a flat display. Now granted, it might not look as premium as other curved glass displays, but who cares about that? With the flat display, you don't have to worry about accidental touches, there are no glares on the edges, and finding and applying a screen protector is so much easier. The flat display on the OnePlus 8T is probably my favorite feature on this phone. It's just so simple to implement, it enhances the experience by a lot while sacrificing so little. Talking about the actual display quality, we have a 6.55-inch 120Hz refresh rate AMOLED panel with a resolution of 1080 by 2400. It is gorgeous. I believe this is the best flat display available on any Android phone right now. The colors look amazing, the vibrance is on point, and even the text looks really crispy and clean with the high resolution. As if OxygenOS wasn't fast enough already, 120Hz gives it an extra push and every tiny bit of animation just flows really smoothly. There's a selfie camera cutout on the top left, but it is really small and doesn't affect the user experience. I tested the display of this phone thoroughly in my long-term usage to look for any display issues like black crush or green tint, but thankfully found nothing wrong. All in all, the display is one of the most important aspects of the whole smartphone experience, and I think OnePlus has a winner in the display of the OnePlus 8T. While we're on the topic of winners, let's talk software and performance. OxygenOS, OnePlus's Android skin, made a name for itself for being very similar to stock Android with the addition of a lot of customizability options. But with the latest OxygenOS 11, OnePlus has decided to step away from all that by making the whole UI look and feel different. Now don't get me wrong, it is still extremely fast and smooth, but it's just that the overall look and feel just feels a bit funky now. But I can still go on to say that I'd rather use OxygenOS 11 than most Android skins. It's just that I miss the stock Android vibe of OxygenOS 10, and depending on who you are, that might or might not be important to you. While the look and feel might have changed, the performance has not. OnePlus phones are famous for having the most cutting edge technology, and this one is no different with the top of the line Snapdragon 865 CPU coupled with the Adreno 650 GPU. But that's not important. What's important is the end user's experience, and that is amazing. The internals, software and 120Hz display all combine to give what is easily the smoothest Android experience you can find on a phone today. Be it memory management, app switching, animations, transitions, social media, games, you name it. The OnePlus 8T is as equipped to take on intensive tasks as any Android phone in 2020 can be, and I don't think there's any user who will be unhappy with the performance of this phone. Let's talk about the cameras now. In terms of optics, the OnePlus 8T comes with a quad camera setup on the rear and a punch hole camera on the front. The 8T gets something from both the OnePlus 8 and the OnePlus 8 Pro. Just like the OnePlus 8, the 8T has the same 48 megapixel primary camera along with an upgraded 5 megapixel macro camera. The OnePlus 8T also has a 2 megapixel monochrome lens similar to the filter camera on the OnePlus 8 Pro. The ultra-wide camera lens is a bit different from the pack with a field of view of 123 degrees. Let's find out whether the OnePlus 8T has a flagship level camera or not. As always, we'll talk about the photos first and then move on to the videos. When we talk about the photos, the OnePlus 8T takes excellent pictures with high dynamic range and sharpness. The pictures have the classic contrasty shot on OnePlus look with better noise processing and warmer tones. The 16 megapixel ultra-wide camera on the OnePlus 8T has the widest field of view when compared to any OnePlus 8 series smartphone. It produces stills with a softer look and really good dynamic range. Now, this certainly gives you a wider field of view, but the pictures shot in low ambient light suffer from minor vignetting. Although the macro camera has been upgraded from 2 megapixel on the OnePlus 8 to 5 megapixel on the 8T, it still takes pretty bad pictures. The portrait mode shoots above average stills for both people and objects. The subject separation is really good. The only downside is the washed out colors. The 16 megapixel front camera takes fairly good selfies. They're not the best when it comes to details, but they are quite similar in terms of dynamic range, subject separation, and colors with other flagships. Low light pictures are excellent when shot using the primary camera. The ultra-wide camera pictures suffer from minor vignetting. Moving on to the videos, the OnePlus 8T can shoot up to 4K at 60 fps from the rear cameras and in Full HD at 30 fps from the front selfie camera. This isn't particularly an upgrade in terms of resolutions and frame rates from the last generation. One thing we like is that OxygenOS 11 has added a video portrait mode and a nightscape video mode along with an overall improved camera UI. The overall video quality is still above average in terms of autofocus speed, optical image stabilization, and contrast. In short, the OnePlus 8T offers a snappier and improved camera user experience. Although it may not have a flagship level smartphone camera yet, it certainly takes pictures and videos which are good enough for social media, casual users, and even content creators to a certain extent. For someone like me who just wants a snappy, good enough camera and not necessarily the best of the best, the OnePlus 8T definitely fits the bill. Moving on to another one of my favorites about this phone, the battery situation. Now battery life is good. 1 to 1.5 days of endurance in my mid to heavy usage with 120Hz always on. Roughly 5 to 6 hours of screen on time. Pretty good, but also nothing that stands out. So what's so exciting? Well, it's OnePlus's new Warp Charge 65 technology which made its debut with the OnePlus 8T. I'm not even kidding when I tell you that I charged my phone from 0 to 50% in just 15 minutes. It is insane. You get 0 to 100 in 40 minutes. Technologies like Warp Charge 65 change the way a user interacts with their phone. I know that it is 2020 and people aren't going out as much, but I can only imagine how useful this technology will be for people who regularly forget to charge their phones. Just plug in your phone and in 15 minutes you have enough juice to last 7-8 hours or even more. You can give me an iPhone 12 Pro Max or a Galaxy Fold 2 or a Note 20 Ultra, but this one feature is something that I'll always miss whenever I switch away from a OnePlus phone. Of course, there are concerns about battery health in the long term with such insanely fast charging. OnePlus has said that to tackle this, they have actually put 2 separate battery packs in the 8T which charge simultaneously and eventually also help achieve those insane speeds. How the battery lasts in the long term? We'll know in the long term. A word about the biometrics. The fingerprint sensor is fast, accurate, reliable, and probably the same sensor from the OnePlus 8 Pro, OnePlus 8, OnePlus 7 Pro, OnePlus 7T Pro, OnePlus 7T and the OnePlus 7. Basically as good as it can get. The phone call experience on this phone has been a bit of a mixed bag. Sometimes it had a hard time holding on to a signal when other phones kept nearby did it easily. Now granted, it could be an isolated incident since cellular reception is inconsistent anyway. As for the actual phone call experience, Although the earpiece can be a bit muffled sometimes, the overall experience is in line with the other OnePlus 8 series phones. Good, but not really the best. To conclude, remember how we talked about OnePlus changing from an ambitious startup challenging the status quo to any other corporate. That is happening. It is inevitable. With one of the co-founders quitting and OnePlus introducing more and more differently priced phones, the OnePlus we knew and loved is changing. But that same OnePlus has perhaps left behind a symbol of the good old days with the OnePlus 8T. This phone can challenge every flagship out there by providing a similar or superior experience at a more value price point. A true flagship killer, and perhaps even the last one. I hope this video helped you out, and if it did, do return the favor by sharing this video, liking it and subscribing to our channel. Do mention your thoughts in the comment section below. This has been Rohan from TechieTechTech, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.